Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for this video, I'm sitting in the 2021 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. And I want to share with you my personal likes and dislikes about this truck so that you have a better idea before you buy. And I also want to explore whether this top-of-the-line Tacoma, which costs almost $48,000 with delivery, will be worth your money. Or if you're better off buying something like the TRD Off-Road instead, or maybe a different truck altogether. Let's first start with the unique features that you can only get in the TRD Pro, starting with the TRD skid plate. If you like showing off your hardware, this TRD skid plate is pretty noticeable, and it really sets the truck apart from the others. Now, this is something that you can buy yourself aftermarket for about $400, so don't think that you can't get this look if you go with the cheaper trims. The TRD Pro also has better suspension, and I think this is the biggest source of the price differential between this and the off-road trim. The TRD Off-Road gives you Bilstein shocks. Now, Bilstein is a reputable shock company, and those shocks are going to give you better off-roading comfort compared to the normal shocks that you'll get in non-off-road Tacoma trims. The shocks in the TRD Pro are made by Fox. What's different here is that it's an internal bypass shock, and it's been TRD tuned in combination with different coil springs. Now, these shocks are more complex because they have different orifices through the piston and also in the outer sleeve. That's why these shocks are fatter. They're 2.5 inches in diameter because it has to have a more complex plumbing system internally. Long story short, this shock is going to give you position sensitive damping. That just means that it's going to be good for some of the on-road stuff, but it's also going to be good for some of the more severe, higher speed off-roading duty. Worth noting that the TRD Pro has a 1 inch wider track, but the same ground clearance at 9.4 inches. Those important off-road angles, such as the approach, departure, and breakover angles, are also better in the TRD Pro compared to the TRD Off-Road by about 3 degrees. Rounding off the proper off-road upgrades, you also have 16-inch TRD Pro wheels with Wrangler tires. You'd want the smaller wheels, thus the larger profile tires for better off-roading duty. That being said, these tires do pretty well for on-road purposes too. They're not too loud on-road, and they're still pretty good for an all-terrain tire. If you plan on doing some serious off-roading, there are plenty of better aftermarket alternatives. And then there's the less serious list of upgrades for the 2021 Tacoma TRD Pro. You can get this exclusive color called Lunar Rock on all TRD Pro models. Every year, Toyota comes out with a new unique color for their TRD Pro line. For example, in 2019, they came out with a special color called Voodoo Blue. For 2020, they came out with Army Green. And for 2021, it's the Lunar Rock. What I love is that they've made those special colors available for the other trims, starting with the TRD Sport and up. So if you want that Army Green color, which, judging by the 4Runner that I tested, is the best color ever, you'd have to go with the non-TRD Pro trim. Continuing with the TRD Pro specific equipment, you'll get LED headlight housing with the word Pro on it. You'll get LED rigid fog lights. Get some TRD Pro leather seats, TRD Pro shift knob, TRD Pro floor mats, TRD Pro badging everywhere, and also TRD Pro catback exhaust. All of these exclusive upgrades are nice, and I think it's kind of worth it considering how the TRD Pro trim holds their resale value better compared to the other trims. And the price differential between the TRD Pro and the TRD Off-Road is actually not that bad considering the strong list of features that you'd get in the TRD Pro. If you got the TRD Off-Road, you'd have to buy a pricey optional package to match the features that you'd find in the TRD Pro. And that's what I love most about this truck, is that it comes with plenty of technology that makes this truck a great daily driver. The biggest one I love is the 360-degree camera system. They call this their multi-terrain monitor. It's normally called the panoramic view monitor in other Toyota vehicles, but the Tacoma has a built-in inclinometer, so it'll tell you your tilt and roll angles. Pretty handy for off-road stuff. There's also a blind spot monitoring system and rear cross traffic alert, which is super helpful when you're trying to back up out of a tight spot. Though generally this truck has pretty good visibility all around, so it's pretty easy to look back and check your blind spots. I also like the infotainment system here. This is the larger 8-inch touchscreen with the built-in Toyota Entune system. It also comes equipped with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and Amazon Alexa. The user interface is very straightforward and easy to use, and the performance is pretty good too. There's also a wireless charger for your phone down here in the cubby hole. There's a USB connection up here. There's also a couple of USB connections in in the armrest, one of them is USB-C. So if you treat this as some sort of a rolling office, you could somewhat get your work done in here. As for the rest of the interior, it's standard fare Toyota, plenty of hard plastics. But it's very fitting in this rugged feeling Tacoma, and you get the sense that this thing's gonna easily last you more than 15 years. Perhaps outlast humanity, who knows? This being the TRD Pro, it does come with heated leather seats, and if you want to control the heat settings and the air conditioning, there's a tiny screen here above the HVAC controls. All very straightforward and a good design, except for this rear defroster button, which it looks like they've forgotten about, so they just snuck it over here in the last minute. And finally, you have your four-wheel drive controls with 4 low and 4 high, and right below that you have your blind spot monitoring system, your ECT power button, which stands for electronically controlled transmission. That's going to let the transmission hold on to the gears a little bit longer before it upshifts. And then you have your parking sensor button, your rear power sliding window control, your USB port, and wireless charging button. As for utility, the TRD Pro only comes in a double cab with a 5-foot bed. It's long enough to fit a couple of bikes back there, but you'd have to drive with the tailgate down. And I also like how it comes with a pretty handy rail system with D-rings and bed cleats, so you could rig it to your heart's desire. If you do want the longer 6-foot bed, you'd have to go with the TRD Off-Road trim instead. So how does it drive? Well, just like any other midsize pickup truck, rough and wobbly. But that's to be expected given the truck's conventional body-on-frame architecture. This truck is great for off-road driving, and I think it's pretty decent for on-road driving as well, but anything other than smooth surfaces will be easily felt in here. But that's going to be the case no matter what if you're looking at trucks. If you don't like the idea of poor ride quality, then you should absolutely consider a unibody construction SUV or crossover, because they're going to have much better ride quality compared to a midsize pickup truck. Or maybe you should consider the non-traditional pickup truck, the Honda Ridgeline, because it has a unibody construction. As for power, the TRD Pro only comes with a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6. It makes 278 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque. Those are better figures than the 2.7-liter 4-cylinder engine that you can find in the lower trims, but neither of these engines ever feel enough for this truck. And it doesn't help that this has a 6-speed automatic transmission that also feels somewhat sluggish. Modern automatic transmissions have more gears, can shift faster, and also give you better mileage. This TRD Pro gets you 17 city and 21 highway. Take, for example, the Ford Ranger, which has a 10-speed automatic transmission, and that gets you 21 city and 26 highway. So compared to the competition, the Toyota Tacoma feels a bit on the old side. But some may say old, others will say tried and true, because the fact is, some of these higher speed automatic transmissions are still on the newer side, so the jury is still out on their long-term reliability. In the meantime, the Toyota Tacoma is going to stick with what works, and Tacomas are generally known for their reliability. So in the long run, maybe we'll see something different, but for now, they're going to stick with what works. So back to the original question of, should you buy the expensive Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro or get the cheaper trims? I think it really depends on how much you like off-roading. If you're just a casual or a hobbyist off-roader, then the TRD Pro is perfect. It has all the proper hardware already installed and it's warranted. This is basically a turnkey off-road ready vehicle that can also serve you well for daily driving duties and also those times when you need to go to Home Depot or Lowe's. If you're really into off-roading and you want to do some mods, then you might be better off getting the TRD Off-Road trim, because that already comes with some of the more important internals like multi-terrain select system, it has the rear locking diff, and also crawl control. The rest of the unique upgrades found in the TRD Pro, like the suspension, wheels and tires, and that skid plate, those can be easily upgraded by going aftermarket, and you have plenty of options there. As for the rest of the midsize pickup truck market, there's no better time to be a midsize pickup truck lover than now. There's plenty of options out there, like the usual suspects, like the Nissan Frontier, which hasn't changed in 1,000 years. There's the Honda Ridgeline, which will drive more like an SUV because of its unibody construction. And then there's the more recent newcomers like the Ford Ranger, Chevy Colorado, and GMC Canyon. And of course, you can't forget the newest kid on the block, the Jeep Gladiator, which is a truly worthy contender. If you want to watch my review of that, please click the link up here. Or there's always the argument of why not just go with a full-size pickup truck instead, because this TRD Pro, fully loaded, Top of the line is at $48,000. That's a very pricey truck. Now, what would you do if you were in the market? Would you go with a top of the line midsize pickup truck, or just go with a full size with a slightly lower trim for roughly about the same price? What would you do? Anyway, let me just wrap it up right there. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you learned something from this video, please consider hitting that like, subscribe, and notification buttons so that you could be notified anytime we make a new video. I'll wrap it up right there. My name is Hanson. This has been the 2021 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. We'll see you next time.